Where does your favorite team's quarterback rank after 4 weeks of the 2024 NFL season? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here with my quarterback rankings. After 4 weeks, I rank every NFL starter and a few backups. Essentially every quarterback that has played so far in 2024. And this tier ranking is solely based on 2024. So it's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. The temperature is rising because there's going to be some hot takes. It's going to be controversial and you might not like it. So if that sounds good, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more tier rankings just like this. And if we get 100 likes on this video, I will rank every offense so far this NFL season. So get those likes up. Spike the like button and let me know in the comments your opinion on my tier rankings. Again, only based on 2024, not 2021, not career resume, not 2023 either. Just the first 4 games, period. Let's get to it, man. Let's tier rank some quarterbacks. It all begins with Snoop Huntley, who played on Monday night against the Tennessee Titans. Did not look great. Did not look like he deserved to be on that field. And honestly, the reason he's only on this tier ranking, and I want to rank him, is he's playing again against the Patriots. So we're going to see more of him. The Dolphins are going to have to rely on him as a starter. Previously in Baltimore, I felt he was actually decent as a backup, but there's a reason he wasn't on an NFL roster before the season started. He's not very good, okay? I felt like he struggled overall against Tennessee. Struggled with accuracy, struggled especially with seeing the field, reading the field, and progressing in the offense from read to read, from player to player. And he just brought no real dimension of extending plays either, the way that you maybe thought he could because he is athletic and is a bit of a runner. And that's supposed to be his strength, but we didn't really see that on Monday night either. So Snoop Huntley, kind of obviously, he's a backup. He's not even really a second stringer at this point. He's in the booty category. And by the way, categories, we got elite, the best of the best, franchise, very good quarterbacks that you can definitely win with, and they're consistent so far. Good. Are they good? Maybe, kind of, I guess, sometimes. Mid is average. Not ideal is you could definitely do better, but at least they're not absolutely terrible. And then you've got booty, which is Snoop Huntley. Okay, Bryce Young. Self-explanatory. Bryce is booty. He's garbage. He's a bust. He's no good. He's awful. And you could talk about it. Like, you've seen Andy Dalton in this offense. Cook in this offense. And Bryce Young had so many issues. First of all, his accuracy flew out the window. I don't know what happened, but he couldn't hit guys wide open, out or inside the pocket. His physical capabilities, obviously extremely underwhelming. Arm strength isn't the absolute worst thing about his game. In fact, it's not actually that awful. It's really the size, and it's the lack of speed and quickness and elusiveness for a guy of that size. You can't be small and slow and stupid, which was what Bryce Young was bringing to the table, honestly. Like, he had nothing at the start of 2024. Nothing at all. That was a plus to this offense. They had to get him out, and they did. So, I don't want to heat the guy up even more than I already have. So, Bryce Young's bad, clearly. Kirk Cousins is up next. Kirk Cousins had a little bit of a shaky start, but he played a great Steeler defense. I thought he played his best game in that fourth quarter of the Eagles, the comeback, the rhythm, the understanding of the 2-minute. Cousins is a very smart player, and he's very good in situational football. He's also very accurate, and he reads defense as well. I think his strength still is always going with the ball where he should go with the ball. His mobility is really lacking, and he can't seem to get away from pressure. His arm strength has taken a hit because of his lower body not really being able to generate as much power as years past, and he's never had a strong arm in general, but he still throws the ball where it should go in the right spot, and he does have control of the offense, it feels. It feels like the offense, though, is struggling with identity, and I don't know if that's because of Cousins and his lack of mobility, or if that's just because of the new play caller that doesn't have a lot of experience in Robinson, but time will tell. This is still one that I'm not exactly sure about, but so far I would say Cousins has been good? Question mark? He's definitely been an upgrade for the Falcons. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. You could argue maybe mid. This one's interesting. Maybe mid. I'm actually going to go with mid because I do think there's limitations to his game right now that are holding back the Falcons. So first thought was good because definitely the Falcons appear to be better in the passing game this year, but still something is missing there. So yeah, I think mid is appropriate. He has played better lately, though, I would say. Derek Carr. Derek Carr has definitely been above average. There's no debate about that. And I've been hating on Derek Carr the last year and a half, I would say, maybe 2 years. And previously to that, I was always kind of a fan of Derek Carr because I feel like Derek Carr at his best has always been a very good quarterback and a quarterback that I appreciate in terms of physically, he has an arm that can make all the throws. He has great touch and accuracy. He's able to physically make a lot of off-platform and different angle throws. And at his best, he's a baller. But the problem is that he largely is not at his best because there's always something affecting him. He seems to be very rigid. He seems to not have that aura to him, I would say, where it's like he makes players around him better. He's very much a product of what's around him, the coaching, the scheme, the talent around him. And he seems to be affected mentally by pressure. He seems to go downhill quickly. He's bad in the red zone, things like that. But I think so far this year, the first 2 games, I mean, he was stellar. He was like an MVP candidate through 2 games, highly efficient, throwing a great deep ball. I love his aggression this year. The ability to throw the ball down the field has always been a weakness in terms of wanting to do that. He's been a check down Charlie the last couple of years, but I think this new offense has really helped him, and this has proven to be the best form of offense for Carr, run heavy, play action oriented. That allows him to be a little bit more where he feels comfortable. Get protection around him, allow him to look down the field and uncork a deep touch pass. And with those speedy receivers around him, it definitely helps. I don't think he's been amazing, especially lately. Against the Eagles, I thought was maybe his roughest performance. But I will say that Carr has definitely been good. So I would say Carr has had franchise quality play so far this season. Jared Goff. Jared Goff had a bad game against the Bucs, but otherwise, he was okay against the Rams. I think it was maybe a little bit less than stellar. So I think people kind of forgot about the first couple of weeks with Jared Goff. The run game really powered them to that victory late against the Rams, and I felt like the passing game's performance in general with Jared Goff in week 1 was underwhelming. Week 2, he struggled in the red zone, and he struggled with some bad mistakes, and he struggled with Todd Bowles' wacky defensive style. But then against the Cardinals and then against the Seahawks, he really got it going. I felt like against a beat-up Seahawks defense, he was absolutely perfect. He literally didn't have an incompletion, was very comfortable, and he made all the throws. And the thing with Goff is when he's protected, there's few guys that in the pocket are more productive than Jared Goff. He's never going to extend plays or make people miss behind the line of scrimmage and make that crazy throw, but he is very, very effective reading the field, especially when it comes to levels in the middle of the field, underneath throws, middle of the field, intermediate throws, power throws. He's very effective. And I think he's found a little bit more of a deep ball this year with Jameson Williams being added to that dimension of Detroit. So I think Jared Goff, I would say good, maybe even franchise. I think it's debatable. Like him and Carr, I guess, have been fairly similar in their games because they've both had a couple games that were not spectacular, but they've also had a couple really, really good games. I thought the Cardinals game, again, was not amazing. So it was okay. It was good. I think his best game by far was Seattle. There's no question about that. But that's really only 1 out of 3 where I would say he was like elite quality. The other games, I felt like he wasn't necessarily terrible in any of the games, maybe Tampa to a certain degree, but he was also relied upon a lot in that game. It was a wacky script and a wacky game in terms of their game plan. He threw the ball a lot in that game. He had a lot of yards, but he couldn't get the ball in the end zone, and he did struggle with a couple turnovers. But I feel like I want to just put him in good. For some reason, Goff, I guess I'm being a little hard on him. I just have higher expectations for the play than he's had overall this year. I want to see, for this offense, just more production. Even against the Cardinals, we just saw the Commanders rip up the Cardinals. Like, they only scored like 20 points against the Cardinals. So I think some of that has to do with the quarterback. Next, Sam Darnold, I would say, has had franchise quality play. I don't think he's been elite. Some people may say that, but I think what's been elite about the team has been the defense. Sam Darnold has just made the appropriate throw or the appropriate play at the right time. I think we saw, maybe perhaps the first glimpse of the old Sam Darnold against the Packers in that second half, where he was kind of unraveling a little bit. He has had a couple turnovers, but mostly he's been put in great situations, like great game states. He's been playing from ahead. He's had a running game. Justin Jefferson, right? It's not hard for him to be successful right now. I need to see more from Sam Darnold when it comes to tough situations, trailing in games, more third down and longs, big, comebacks or like fourth quarter game-winning drive situations. It feels like Darnold is more a product of Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings situation than he is himself. And again, I think Darnold has always had talent. Physically, he's a deceptive runner, is Darnold. I think that he's accurate for the most part. I think especially when he can set his feet and he feels like he's protected, he can put the ball where he wants to. That throw to Justin Jefferson against the Packers was superb, and we've seen a few throws to Justin Jefferson this year that were really superb. I think the most impressive part of his entire season was arguably the game ceiling drive against the Niners where Justin Jefferson got hurt, and then he was pretty much throwing to like Naylor as his number one receiver. That was impressive. I think he's mostly been able to be mistake-free when he's needed to be. So yeah, really, really good. I just don't think like he's been carry the team amazing, like absolutely through the roof production. Like a lot of it has been a really well-rounded team that's been able to run it, throw it, play defense, play special teams. And that's why I would say franchise quality, but not elite. Jordan Love. Honestly, Jordan Love, this one's tough because obviously high expectations before the year, but you can't just let expectations alone kind of cloud your judgment, because I was really high on Love coming into the season, and I was really high on Love at the end of last year. And I've always been a Jordan Love fan. I think he's been less than what we expected, but how good has that level of play been? He was really good against the Vikings in the second half. He was really bad against the Vikings in the first half. Some of that could be chalked up to he was injured, which is also part of the evaluation. He's only really played 2 games. The first game, I thought he was okay. I thought he was better than his competition, Jalen Hurts, but I didn't think he was amazing. I thought that he missed a number of easy throws, and it felt like everything for him in that game was very inconsistent. It was rather big play or nothing. And I don't love that with my quarterback. And against the Vikings, obviously, he was a big reason they fell into a 28-0 hole because he couldn't consistently read the defense and make the proper throw. And he still is spraying the ball. Like, he's more inaccurate than I think people realize. He has this, I feel like, this mechanical flaw with his feet that doesn't allow him to be consistently accurate even on easy money throws, like easy gimme throws, I should say, not even money throws. He's actually better at money throws than he is gimme throws at times. But I am always impressed with his ability to kind of buy time and slip through a rush and kind of make an awkward throw or a tough pocket throw with a condensed, collapsing pocket. I think he still showcases that, but I think he's also showcased kind of an uncomfortable feeling in the pocket against Minnesota with that injury. So I would actually say Jordan Love has not been ideal. I think he's been less than average for the most part. And this will definitely move up. He'll definitely get better and improve. But I think overall Packers fans expected a lot more. And I think that you could make an argument. There's been two quarterbacks that have played for the Packers. And I think arguably Jordan Love has been the worst one. So, yeah, that might be hot. Jayden Daniels. Now, the tricky thing with Jayden Daniels is you have to evaluate him as just a quarterback and not a rookie quarterback, right? This is the same thing that we had trouble with CJ Stroud, where Stroud was not only good for a rookie, but also good for a normal starter, a normal quarterback, a veteran quarterback, right? The weird thing for me about Daniels is his offense is so quick game oriented that it's really hard to tell how amazing his quarterback play is, because does he showcase accuracy, ball placement, and elusiveness and quickness at a high level? Yes. Is he physically right now in terms of his speed, his scrambling ability, elite in that regard? Yes. Has he brought a spark and a leadership? It feels some sort of aura to the Commanders? Absolutely. So he gets check marks for that. But I think the system has really allowed him to thrive. I think that him getting the ball out so quickly, Cliff Kingsbury limiting his kind of vision in terms of taking away his weaknesses of being a pocket, read the field, intermediate passer, and primarily just being a quick game or downfield passer, along with the occasional scramble drill play, has really allowed him to thrive, because I think Cliff has done a great job of minimizing where he's weakest and making the game very simple for him. So inside the offense he's asked to operate, he's been awesome. But on a traditional quarterback scale, I feel like he's been good, but I don't necessarily know that he is like the reason the offense is as good as it is, if you know what I mean. Because the run game has been very good. The yards after catch has been superb. The scheming has been excellent. So there's a lot of things that are working for them. Nonetheless, given the state of quarterback play right now, I think that through 4 weeks, he has played really weak defenses outside of Tampa Bay, where he did struggle a little bit. But in the 3 games following, I felt like he was as good as any quarterback really has been. So it's hard to say that he hasn't been elite, despite sort of the flaws in the argument of him being elite, maybe on a traditional level, if that makes sense. So it's a complicated kind of process. You guys let me know what you thought and think of Jayden Daniels right now. Jalen Hurts, I think he's been not ideal. Jalen Hurts, similarly to Jordan Love, kind of predicted to be around the same range of quarterback play as Jordan Love, kind of ranked before the season as a similarly ranked quarterback as Jordan Love. Has high expectations, is seen as a, without a doubt, franchise quarterback, paid as such as well. Physically speaking, has skills, arm strength, rushing ability, power, Leadership is definitely there for him, something that we all love about him. His presence, his command, and I think that he does those things very well. Now, in terms of his quarterback play, I think you've seen all the warts to his play once again that we saw at the end of last year. I still think he struggles with the blitz. I think he's been better in that regard, but I still think he struggles. I think we've seen him struggle more without his top targets out there, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, which any quarterback would struggle, but you're expecting and you're seeing other quarterbacks in the NFL be able to overcome that to a certain degree. We'll get to one in San Francisco. But also, I feel like he has a great situation. He has a great running game. He has a great offensive line. Even without the receivers, he's still been a little inconsistent. His turnovers have been extremely frustrating and have lost them games. And I think his lack of vision is extremely unpredictable. It makes their offense really hard to rely on because sometimes he just doesn't see the field very well. And he relies too much on one-on-one ball, jump ball situations, go ball situations, like a quick curl from A.J. Brown to make a guy miss and do something. Like, he relies too much on like the first read, and he relies too much on his physical ability to run and get out of the pocket. And I think teams kind of bait him into doing that. So you just have seen all the kind of warts in his game despite having maybe one or two decent performances. I think the turnovers speak for themselves. The inconsistency speaks for itself. Caleb Williams, I think, has been booty, in my opinion. Like, he is, I think, the biggest reason this team is not 3-1 or 4-0, I should say, not 2-2, because they are 2-2. But I think the only reason they're 2-2 is because their defense has been excellent. I don't think it's because of their quarterback play. They won a game in which they barely did anything on offense against the Titans. They had a special teams touchdown, a defensive touchdown. Will Levis handed them the game. Caleb Williams has been erratic in terms of accuracy. His deep ball has been horrific. Can't make a throw down the field. His ability to scramble has been promising at times, but also backbreaking because he's lost the most amount of yards in the NFL to sacks. So he's taking too many sacks, and he's also losing too many yards, which end drives. You can see it on the face of DJ Moore, how frustrating this young quarterback has been for this offense. And don't get me wrong, I don't think the run game or Shane Waldron has done him many favors, but he entered the NFL with very high expectations. He talked the talk, and he has not walked the walk so far. So, Caleb Williams, booty. Dak Prescott. Ooh, this one's interesting because I think, honestly, the problems with the Cowboys nearly have nothing to do with Dak. Almost like very little to do with Dak Prescott. I think Dak has been mostly good. I think the thing with Dak is, like, in the games that they've lost, he hasn't even really had a chance to win the game, if that makes sense. Like, could he have been perfect and won those games against the Saints and the Ravens? Perhaps. But I mean, even some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, you put them in the same spot, they probably lose those games given how their defense played, their running game is played, their offensive line is played. Like, you really think about Dallas right now, I'm going to put him in good or in franchise, because I think Dak, independent of the Cowboys, has been good, has been their best player, arguably at times. I thought he played great against the Giants. I thought he was the biggest reason they won the game. Their defense has not played well all year. They can't cover. They can't stop the run. There's problems. Other than the Browns game, which, by the way, Dak didn't have the best stats against the Browns, but he managed that game very well, and he made just a few plays in that game that allowed them to win. You look at the game against the Giants, I felt like he kind of carried them to that win, along with CeeDee Lamb. And then the Saints and Ravens games, he kind of started slow, especially against the Ravens, but then he got it going towards the end where he was playing really, really well. The Saints game, it was just impossible to win that game. I mean, they scored on every drive, the Saints. So did he struggle maybe a little bit against the Saints early? Could have done a better job? Yes. But I think you also look at the flaws on the Cowboys and you say, like, yeah, this is the reason he's not elite, because he can't overcome some of those flaws. But at the same time, he's franchise. Like, if you have a little bit better around him, just maybe even just slightly better defense, he might be 3-1 or 4-0 right now. So Dak franchise. I'd say Matthew Stafford. This is an interesting one because I thought week 1 was awesome. I thought he played awesome against the Niners, especially in the second half. But the other games, the Bears game and the Cardinals game he didn't play particularly well. But how much blame goes on Stafford for the losses and the record of the Rams, given that their offensive line has been completely beat up, their receiving core is beat up, their defense is horrible? How much blame can go on Matthew Stafford? So for me, I look at his play and I say franchise because I think when you watch him at his best this year, he looks like one of the elite quarterbacks in the league in terms of the ability to read the field, the ability to get the ball out quick, the ability to negate a pass rush, the ability to make your offensive line better, your receivers better. That ability Stafford still has, clearly, if you watch them play. I think he is the best thing about the Rams right now. So despite the inconsistency in terms of wins and losses, despite that Cardinals game not really coming across that well, and maybe, a turnover or two that he'd like to have back against the Bears, that's probably why I don't put him in elite, because of those slight flaws. But otherwise, the Niners game, many quarterbacks in the league don't win that game. The Lions game does not go to overtime without Matthew Stafford, and I would argue that Stafford was one of 2 or 3 quarterbacks that could have played that well in that game, in the NFL. So, franchise for me. Geno Smith. Geno Smith is he's definitely franchise. The question is, has he been elite? Honestly, Geno was amazing against the Lions. I thought he was really good against the Patriots. I thought he was maybe a little worse than expected against Denver, but Denver has proven to be a pretty good defense. He's turned it over maybe a little bit too much. He's had some turnover-worthy plays that you wouldn't like to see. So I'll put him in franchise because I think he's looked every bit as good as a guy like Stafford. I think he's had to do more for his team than a Darnold or a Carr. So, if I were ordering this right now, I would probably say Stafford, then Geno, or maybe Geno, then Stafford. These two are probably interchangeable, right? Either way. And then I would probably have Darnold, Carr. Darnold, Dak, then Carr. Probably. But, yeah, Geno, man. The way he's throwing the ball, there's just few quarterbacks right now that are throwing the ball as well, as crisp as Geno Smith. His ability to escape pressure right now and make plays on the move has been the best I've ever seen from him. His ability to throw the ball down the field with accuracy and touch and power has been superb. His ability to find the underneath target has been superb. His leadership, his fire, all of it, big moment play, his late quarter play. He was the reason they beat the Patriots. If you swap quarterbacks, the Patriots destroy the Seahawks in that game. So, yeah, I would put Geno there. Daniel Jones. He hasn't been booty, believe it or not. Given the way that people talk about him, that's what you would think. I would say probably not ideal. The reason for that is I think Daniel Jones has this thing about him where he does enough to appear like he's worth keeping around, but he doesn't do more than what's enough. You know what I mean? He leaves something on the table. He leaves food out there. He leaves plays on the field. You know what I mean? And I think that has been the case this year. He's had some good games. I actually thought he played well against Dallas, but there were moments against Dallas where he let Dallas win that game. If he was just a touch better in a few moments, better in the red zone, right? More consistent in that regard, they probably win that game. He wasn't exactly the best against the Vikings. There's no doubt about that. But we've seen quarterbacks struggle against the Vikings. Again, against the Commanders. If he was just slightly better than he was, not saying he was bad, but if he was just slightly better, you get what I'm getting at? He's been better this year. Like, he's been protected, which has helped him. He's making a lot more throws. Obviously, the receiving core has been the best it's been for him in a long time. So I think not ideal is the proper way to put it for Daniel Jones. Kyler Murray, he's been inconsistent. Like, I think Kyler Murray is overall a decent quarterback, but I feel like his elite side is so elite and so special, but I feel like that elite side rarely comes out. It's kind of like his season so far. He's had one really elite game where he was special, and then the other 3 games, he was kind of mid. He was kind of average. Like, game 1, I thought he was very good in the first half, but where did he go in the second half? After that, he plays Detroit. He was pretty underwhelming. Against Washington, he was extremely underwhelming. So I think overall you would put Kyler Murray in the mid category. Despite that one special performance against the Rams, he has been disappointing. He does have Marvin Harrison Jr. now. He does have a good running game. There's little excuses for him right now. So I would put Kyler Murray in the mid. Aaron Rodgers is up next. I don't know why, but Rodgers looks kind of funky in this photo. I don't know if it's just me. I think Rodgers is an interesting case too, because I actually felt Rodgers didn't play bad against the Niners, despite the narrative that he was washed after that game. I thought that he actually played decent. Then against the Patriots, I thought he played amazing. I thought against the Titans, he played good enough to get the job done. And I thought against Denver, he had his worst game. So I think Rodgers has also been mid. That game against the Patriots was amazing, like elite. His ability to move, throw on the move, the touch throws, the accuracy, the command at the line, all excellent. I thought against Tennessee, he had very good feel and control of the game, and he didn't do anything poorly. He didn't do anything extremely well. He didn't pop off the screen. The Niners game, he was still getting his feet under him, and he was trying to feel the game out, and you could tell. And there were some moments where he looked old, but there were other moments where he looked like his old self. And the Denver game was just a disaster all the way around. So I think mid is probably a fair category for him, because I don't think he's washed by a long shot, but I don't think he's anywhere near what he used to be. Jacoby Brissett, this is such a tough evaluation because the Patriots' offensive line is the worst in the NFL. The Patriots' skill position's bad. It's a really difficult situation to be in for any quarterback. Jacoby, I felt like played okay against the Bengals. I thought he played arguably better against Seattle. I thought his best game was against the Seahawks overall. Then in weeks 3 and 4, it seemed to go downhill. Against the Jets, he was pretty bad, and a lot of the offense was bad. And then against the Niners, again, not great. So overall, he's not a good he's not a starter in the NFL. So I would have to put him in booty category, but more in terms of situation, it's less about him and more about the things around him, in my opinion, than these other guys. Like, I think he's been mostly mistake-free. I think he actually has done a pretty good job at escaping pressure. I think he's made the throws when they're there, and he's mostly been accurate and on time. But he's also missed a number of explosive plays, and he just doesn't bring anything upper echelon to the table in terms of any sort of quarterback category. Intelligence, mobility, arm strength, accuracy. None of his game really screams like that he's bringing something special to the team. He's just like being a game manager in a situation where more than a game manager is needed to make the thing look appropriate. So booty is the category. Kyler Murray is here twice. That's my mistake. Tua would go in the... Okay, so he played against Miami. He was decent in that game. He had a comeback. That was his best game. Then he played against Buffalo, and he was horrific. And then he got injured, right? So I would say not ideal for a number of reasons. Obviously, him getting injured and him running into Damar Hamlin on purpose head first is not ideal. And it set his team back. And I think honestly, he deserves more blame because he put himself in danger. He put himself in a bad position. He deserves that blame. He understands his head situation, his history with head injuries, and he should have understood. At the same time, he was terrible against Buffalo. Absolutely awful. He was throwing ducks to the opponent, burgers, as Durkant would say. And in week 1, I did think he played well in the second half, but there's a reason they were down 17-0 and they did nothing on offense in the first half. So Tua, not ideal all the way around. Brock Purdy, elite. He leads the NFL in yards per attempt, and his team is second last in yards after catch. Pretty much the opposite of another quarterback in the NFL right now. But I would say that Brock Purdy has been elite. I thought that against the Vikings, he didn't play his best, but I thought out of all the quarterbacks that have played Minnesota, he probably played the best. I think he only had like 6 incompletions. He had over 300 yards. He did make a couple of mistakes, but one of them was really fluky, like the ball slipped out of his hands. And he just generally has had issues against Minnesota, but that was mostly because the offensive line was giving him a lot of issues because they couldn't block for him. They had 6 sacks in that game, Minnesota, and a lot of pressure. I think in all the other games, he's been really good. I thought against the Jets, against a tough pass defense, he was really good. He made the appropriate throw at the right time. He made the appropriate scramble at the right time. He was smart with the football. He was accurate. And that was probably his worst performance of the year. Against New England, he was elite. Like, he didn't make a bad throw. He didn't make a bad decision. I should say he did. He threw an interception. That wasn't the best decision, but it was kind of garbage time by that point. I would say that his scrambling ability has really been superb. I think his vision has been great. I think his ability to extend and go beyond the offense has been the best it's ever been. I think that his deep ball has been the best it's ever been. And I think he has a command of this offense that he really has a grasp. And I think his combination of play within and out of structure has been elite quality. So, yeah, I've been extremely impressed with Purdy. I've been extremely impressed. I think he's been elite. Josh Allen, elite. You know, he didn't have his best game against the Ravens, but if you go back and watch that game, you would pretty much see that nothing was on Josh Allen. It was rather really poor scheming and poor play calling, or the Ravens just basically dummied the Bills' game plan all the way around. Like, there was constant pressure in his face, or just receivers bagged all over the field. So there was nothing that really Allen could do. Like that fumble on the trick play, can you really blame him for that? Could he have maybe played a little bit better? Perhaps. Josh Allen in other games goes above and beyond in Superman mode, and he wasn't able to do that in that game. But outside of that game, I mean, the Jacksonville game was probably the best quarterback performance we've seen all season. The game against Miami, he was pretty much perfect. He didn't make any mistakes, and he made all the big plays that he needed to make, and he was also smart with the ball, understanding his defense was dominant. In week 1, he went into Superman mode and carried his team to a win over the Cardinals. So I think you would argue he's the MVP in the league right now, or at least in the same category as these two other gentlemen here. And I would say that Allen, you know, overall is probably the best quarterback in the league. Justin Fields. This one's interesting. I would say Justin Fields, he's kind of been the definition of a game manager. He hasn't really made any mistakes. He hasn't made too many big throws or big plays. I thought that he actually did his most in the passing game last week when they lost. And, you know, that doesn't speak to how important he is to their wins and loss category. I think he's done a much better job at not getting sacked. I think he's done a much better job at not turning it over. So that's big for him. I think that they've made life very simple on him, similarly to Jayden Daniels, where he has to make very simple reads, simple throws. He hands the ball off a lot. They split the field in half for him. I would say that he's definitely been better than not ideal because he's been winning games. For their team, he's been like good enough. I don't think he's necessarily been like above average though, so I think mid is the right category. The one thing I'd like to see more from Fields is like designed running. I'd like to see him run more, get involved in that way. I don't really feel like we've been seeing that from Arthur Smith as much as I would like. Lamar Jackson, I don't necessarily think Lamar has been bad in any game that he's played. I don't think he was bad against the Chiefs, although I thought he could have played a lot better. I thought his passing performance left something to be desired. I thought in week 2, he wasn't bad, but again, he wasn't great. Like, they lost the game, and part of that falls on him. I think he got strip sacked later in that game, if I'm not mistaken. I thought his rushing overall has been superb. Like, the Chiefs game was class. Then week 4 against the Bills, he also took off in that department. Against Dallas, he didn't have to do a ton, but he was pretty much perfect. So I would probably put Lamar in the elite category, although, like, you could argue franchise. He's maybe a little bit... The thing is with Lamar, like, they've won 2 games, and both games that they won, he didn't have to do a lot. So maybe you would put him in the franchise category. Maybe that's more fair. Because in the games that he had to do more, they lost. So I guess we'll put him in the franchise category just for that reason alone. But I think you could make an argument for elite. I think even in fantasy, he's been second best in fantasy so far. So if that means anything. Will Levis. Clearly booty. I mean, does he make nice throws at times and tight window throws? Yes. Does he have a rocket arm? Yes. Is he tough? Yes. But is he stupid? Absolutely. Has he lost his team games? No doubt about it. And that's the definition of booty. You can't lose your team games and then Mason Rudolph enter the game, replace you, and look like he's being more efficient with the football than you. And there's just always a sense of erratic play with Will Levis. Are there more big plays and more awe plays and more like fun involved with Will Levis than a Mason Rudolph? Absolutely. But does it lead to W's more often? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Joe Burrow. Burrow, I thought against the Patriots was pretty bad, honestly. He didn't do really anything to help their team win. He was kind of scattered by pressure. I feel like he didn't make any plus throws in the game. He really didn't make a lot of those scramble plays that he's known for. And if anything, I just thought he played too conservative. In week 2 against the Chiefs, I thought he played better than Mahomes. And I thought that he played more efficient and he got the ball out and he seemed to be accurate more often. He still lacked the big play. And his playmaking did get a little bit better, but he was mostly a low, A-dot quarterback that was getting the ball out to the right spot at the right time. But he did take a couple stupid sacks. He did have a critical turnover that lost them the game. So I wasn't super impressed there. I thought he played amazing against Washington. Not amazing. I think amazing is a little too far. I thought he played very well against Washington. I thought that his throws to Chase were superb. I thought he made a number of critical scramble drill plays and scrambles in general. I thought he was able to find every receiver he wanted to, and obviously they didn't punt. And then against Carolina, I thought he played well in that game as well, and he made some big throws, especially early on in that game, which he struggled with in the previous games. So I would say, franchise, maybe good. This one's debatable. I think franchise or good. I think lately he's played more like a franchise quarterback, but I think at the beginning of the year he was more like, is he good still? Like, I don't know, because there was that debate. So it's kind of been split in half. I don't know, man. This one's tough. I'm going to put him in the franchise category, but I don't feel great about that. Anthony Richardson is up next. Booty. He can't complete 60% of his passes in any NFL game. He's bad. He misses so many easy throws. So many. And then he gets himself injured when he runs. There's really nothing about his game that's been special that's been above average that helps you win football games. The only thing has been the odd explosive downfield throw that he makes. But that's it. I mean, he lost them the game against the Packers. Absolutely. He was really inconsistent against Houston, and the only reason they were in the game is because of some crazy throws he made. Then, after that, he's just been really underwhelming and got hurt. Deshaun Watson, I would say booty overall. I think against the Raiders, he was better. I think in some moments, he's been better than his recent play. But I think overall, you look at the numbers, completion percentage, yards per game, the sacks he takes, the consistent inaccuracy, the reading of the field, and then you throw in leadership, booty. Joe Flacco. I'd say Joe Flacco, I mean, he's only played like half a game. It was probably like good, but I would just put him in mid. I think Joe Flacco has been exactly what the Colts wanted as a backup. And honestly, he's better than Anthony Richardson. So I think that, he came in and he starts slinging it, and you saw like Andy Dalton, the production of the offense went up. He went with the ball where he needed to go accurately with power. And that's all that can be said. He's tough in the pocket, right? This is a 2000s quarterback producing in 2024, and people thought that wasn't going to be the case anymore, but it totally is. It's actually the opposite. Trevor Lawrence, booty. Mostly booty. Holds on the ball too long, erratic decision-making and accuracy, head-puzzling turnovers, hasn't been able to overcome a less than ideal offensive line. Defense does suck, but he does have a great receiving core. He makes the odd really nice play, kind of like Anthony Richardson. He's kind of been like a better version of Anthony Richardson this year. I'll order them after. CJ Stroud. I think other than the Vikings game, I think he's been elite, but if you throw that Vikings game in, does he still rank in the elite category? Allen didn't have a great game against the Ravens, although I thought that was like not his fault. Brock Purdy had kind of a tough game against the Vikings as well. And Jayden Daniels had a tough game against the Bucs. So I would still put him in elite, because here's the thing about Stroud. He's the reason they're winning. He is the reason. Him and Nico Collins, pretty much, singularly. And at times their defense, their pass rush in particular. But the thing I think people don't realize about Stroud is that he has to do more than other quarterbacks, because I think his coaching is retroactively, and not even retroactively, it's actively killing his offense. They're running the ball on early downs unsuccessfully, setting up Stroud for 2nd and 10 or 3rd and 10. Constantly. They're taking way too many penalties. They have the most offensive penalties in the NFL. Is part of the blame maybe on Stroud for that at the communication line of scrimmage level? Potentially, but I think largely it has to do with an overall operation issue. Bobby Slowick has been less than good. The offensive line has been horrible at times, both in protection and in terms of consistency mentally in penalties. And Stroud has had to overcome that, and he mostly has. The only time he hasn't is against the Vikings. And even against the Vikings, he made a number of throws and plays, and some of them were called back. So, yeah, I think in terms of everything we expect from him, I think his elusiveness, his ability to buy time and find plays out of structure has been one of the best in football, if not the best I've seen this year. His in-pocket play has been maybe a little bit less than we thought, but accuracy, touch, ball placement has been the best in the league, probably. So he's elite. It's just that his team is kind of letting him down right now. Patrick Mahomes. This one's interesting because obviously he's known as the best player in the NFL. But this year, he hasn't been very good, and this is solely based on this year. The offensive line, now I'm trying to look at his situation. His offensive line, great in the interior, provides a good pocket. The tackles have had some issues, specifically left tackle. They had to substitute their left tackles, replace the starting left tackle at the beginning of the year. Kelsey has been sort of washed. The run game has been inconsistent. And Rashee Rice has been excellent. I think mostly the receivers have been better than last year. Worthy has been pretty good. I think that Rashee Rice has been good. Watson stepped up. Nothing has been wrong with the receiving corps so far this year. The defense has also been spectacular, which has really helped Mahomes win these games. I think at times he's tried to lose the game for his team, like against the Bengals. I thought against the Ravens, he was pretty inconsistent. Mostly good, but pretty inconsistent. Week 2 against the Bengals, I thought was probably his worst game. Week 3 against the Falcons, I thought he was just very system manager-esque. He didn't do a lot. And then in the last game against the Chargers, he played well at the end, but he didn't really play well at the beginning. So he's been making less explosive plays than ever. He's been making less scramble drill plays than ever. He's been dumping the ball off more than ever. He's been more system reliant than ever. And he's always had his numbers propped up by system. Don't get it twisted. And this offense has completely become generic and very vanilla and very unfun to watch. A lot of screens, a lot of quick throws. I think the best thing Mahomes has done is the time to throw and the ability to, at the middle of the field level, kind of make safeties and linebackers move and find lanes to throw. I think that's been his best trait this year. And then also just the ability to manage the game, which isn't a negative. But I think overall, I'd put him in the good category, good enough to win all the games, but definitely not above average quarterback play. Sort of like Goff, where I think even Goff's been better, to be honest. But sort of like Goff, where he's had other reasons the team is winning, but he's not been a reason they're losing. They haven't lost yet. So I'd put him in good. Bo Nix, pretty much booty. I mean, he's a rookie, so it's a different scale, especially in Denver, where they don't have a lot of talent. But I mean, they won a game where he had 60 yards. His first week was awful. He couldn't throw the ball past the line of scrimmage. And I don't think he's a starter in the league. I really don't. I'm going to watch him a little bit closer as we move on towards the middle of the season, because I think the Broncos are sitting at an interesting spot right now. They're 2-2, I think. I thought his best game was against Tampa. But even in the games that they've won, he really hasn't had to do anything. He's been the definition of a passenger. They really don't allow him to participate. So I would say booty. Gardner Minshew, I would say probably not ideal. But honestly, I don't think he's been booty. I thought he had a good game against the Ravens, especially in comeback mode. I thought he did enough against a tough Browns defense. He's been dealing with offensive line injuries. He's been dealing with his star receiver not wanting to play for him. He's been dealing with, defense getting injured. I thought that he didn't play that well against the Chargers, but I didn't think he was awful. I thought the offensive line was pretty underwhelming. And then he played really well against the Ravens. He, in week 3, probably played his worst game against Carolina, because that should be an defense you should obliterate, right? But then in week 4, he kind of jumped back. I think the best thing about Minshew is he has no memory. He has great memory loss as a quarterback. He just continues to go out there, sling it, and be a baller. I would like to see his baller side come out more. I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive, like he was against Baltimore, just constantly playing in comeback mode. I'd like to see that more than just a game manager, which I feel like we've seen a little bit too much. Andy Dalton, I would say, has been... I mean, he was amazing against the Raiders. Amazing. Dots everywhere. And then against the Bengals, he was good. Definitely good. Honestly, Andy Dalton has been franchise quality. You put him in most situations and he would be playing well. Honestly, he's only played 2 games, But you look at the numbers, the defense is atrocious in Carolina. Previously, the quarterback in Carolina was an absolute piece of garbage. So you compare his numbers to Bryce's, it doesn't even feel like the same team. And that game against the Raiders was one of the best quarterback performances of the season. He was throwing rockets, the Red Rifle. So I got to put him in franchise. Justin Herbert, I think not ideal. He's been fine. I think like individually, he tries to make plays and sometimes they don't work out. There's a drop or something. But I don't think in any game this year he has been superb, carry the team, Justin Herbert. Like, oh my goodness, did you watch Justin Herbert on that play, scramble around, make an amazing throw? Did you see that touch on that throw down the field that he made? I feel like for the most part, he's just been like mid. Maybe mid is a better categorization because he has been hurt and he has been playing tough defenses like the Steelers, the Chiefs. But at the same time, like he hasn't been good. So I think not ideal might be a little rough because he isn't actively hurting his team. He isn't actively losing them games. But he's also not the reason they're winning. So, mid is probably more fair. Malik Willis, I would say mid as well. Like, Malik Willis he really didn't have to do anything that was amazing. Like, it was very structured, very schemed. A lot of play action stuff, rollouts, screens, a lot of using his legs. Like, nothing that any quarterback in the league could not do. So that's where I would say he's very game manager. And he did play the weaker opponents that the Packers played, which allowed him to win the games. But I actually think he's been better than Jordan Love so far, which is crazy. But I do think that he's done less in terms of destroying the team's ability to win. So that's where I'd put him at mid. Baker Mayfield has been elite. There's no debate. Ball placement, rushing for him has been elite, like as good as he can get in terms of his rushing, that run against the Lions. He's one of the better pocket quarterbacks in terms of reading the field, going where he needs to go with the ball and putting it with proper touch and placement. I think his feel, his command for the offense is superb. I think that his toughness is up there with the best. I think he's MVP quality right now. He's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And that is the tier list, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Did I get it right? Let's order this real quick at the top. Let's go Josh Allen, Baker, Daniels, Purdy, Stroud. That feels fair. Geno, Stafford, Darnold, Dak. Okay, let's put Lamar here. No, Darnold over Lamar. Let's put Burrow over Dak. That's fair, I think. And Dalton there. Let's put Goff, then Mahomes, Cousins. This one's interesting. Okay. Let's put... Flacco's barely played, so we kind of got to put him here. Herbert, that's fair. Fields a little bit better than Herbert, I actually think is probably pretty fair. Rodgers or Kyler. Kyler did have that one amazing game. Yeah, I think that's fair. Then Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, Tua, Gardner Minshew. Tua's barely played. It's kind of hard to... He only played 2 games. Daniel Jones, above Minshew, Tua, Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love. That's fair. Then Booty. Bryce has been the worst quarterback I've ever seen. Bo Nix, Anthony Richardson. And, Huntley's terrible. Richardson. Lawrence, probably up here. Caleb. Yeah. I mean, Brissett's probably been better than Caleb, though. Levis, Deshaun. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's it right there. That's the rankings. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Gronk spike the like button, 100 likes, and I'll tier rank something else. Offenses, defenses, teams. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Deuces.